Hello, everybody. Welcome to this week's episode on Laidback, the Atirozinga podcast. And our topic for this week is breaking bias, understanding cultural differences in everyday life. And our guest for this week is Prince Obinna. Prince is a geologist turned project manager who is driven by curiosity. His curiosity has led to diverse experiences through his exploration of the complex layers of human thought, innovation, and society. Hello, Prince. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me today.
It's an honor to have you here.
Yeah, trust me, it is actually.
All right. So I'm going to start with the same question I ask everybody.
Yeah.
All right. So is
Okay.
this your first podcast?
Literally, I would say yes,
Okay.
proper because most of the time, the podcasts I've had in the past is just we just get phones and stuff. But this is a little bit more formal today. But
First time in the studio then.
yeah, let's get it kicking.
Fair enough. So what are your expectations then?
I know you're not going to trouble me much. And the topic we're having today it's quite very warm.
Yeah.
So it's not much of a lot of stress actually. So I'm expecting good things today. So let's see.
Okay.
Yeah.
Fair enough. So let's start with asking the first question. So in the context of cultural understanding, what does actually breaking bias? What does it actually mean to you personally?
Yeah, cultural understanding. We as much as we try as much as possible to funnel it into just cultures. It's something that a lot of people neglect a lot actually. From the wider lens, you understand that culture is everything. It's a way of life,
Yeah.
and life is what we have. So I realized that we don't really pay attention to cultures
Okay.
and how it affects our day-to-day activities, our life activities. So for me, I think culture is everything. It's everything. It's like the bread of life. So you should have a certain way you behave, and your origin is very very important. So it's really huge, and we'll try as much as possible to break it into fragments to see how we can have a proper conversation.
Okay, but going back now, so like, bro, when we talk about culture, what do we really mean? What is a culture actually?
Layman terms,
Yeah,
way of life.
exactly.
As much as it's very very it's layman terms, but way of life entails everything. So it has the globalization impact definitely. It has the influence definitely. So it's very very big. As much as we look at it, culture. People look at it as culture.
Yeah.
There's a lot about culture. Culture. There's environmental culture. There's work ethics culture. You know, and as much as we can break other cultures into different types, we can see that your origin, especially, has a greater influence actually.
Yeah.
So
Okay. So when we talk about origin, because let's say we're looking at in the context of what we're talking about today, we're looking at our origin. All
okay.
right. So can you actually share a moment where like cultural misunderstanding actually taught you something that you didn't expect?
um, uh, moving to the UK was a different culture. And there was a white secret. I will call it a white secret. They're white in the sense that they always say that, or transparent secret. They always say that the English people do not have a culture, and that's totally wrong. And this information has traveled wide beyond and beyond, and people do not understand that the English people also have their culture. So when I moved to the UK, trust me, I had a cultural shock. How people put up a very very subtle smile in the morning, and I'm like, why is everybody smiling at you? You don't know me, you're smiling at me. So I realized that it's a cultural thing, and it has been passed on to different
From generations,
generations,
yeah.
and yeah. So when you see people don't they walk straight down the road, don't look straight into your eyes. But most places in Africa, when you walk down the road, people look straight into your eyes.
Yeah, say
But
hi.
over here and say hi. But over here, it's a
It's
different
different.
ball game exactly. Yeah. So I begin to pay attention to it, and if there's a certainty on how these people behave, there should be a reason. There should be an origin. Is it just about their personal life? Is it about their personal character?
Yeah.
So I now realize that generally, to an extent, I think culture has a bigger influence on how people behave day to day life. That's how I look at it actually.
Okay, but now that you mentioned that you had a cultural shock, like when you moved from Nigeria to the UK,
Yeah.
right? So, but why is it so hard for people to actually see their own cultural lens until it's challenged or biased. Like, for example, yours was challenged because you actually had to move from Nigeria to to the UK.
UK, yeah.
You realize there's a cultural shock, there's a difference.
Yeah.
So why is it that it's hard for us to actually see that our own cultural lens as well through our own cultural lens?
Yes. I, if you come begin with the question, I think um it's always going to be very difficult sometimes.
Yeah.
Do you understand? Because when you get to a new country, you understand that you have distractions. Definitely, you're trying to adapt to the new system. You're struggling to where you're coming from. Do you understand? You've got your own expectation. So there is always a bit of some challenges you're actually going to face. Definitely, it's very very certain.
Yeah, but what I'm trying to say is, right,
Okay.
sometimes we don't actually understand that we actually see things through our own cultural lens
Okay.
until it's challenged. For example, and
Yes.
all I'm trying to say now, yours was actually challenged because you had to move. And that's when
Yes.
you just start realizing, oh, the way we do things where I come from is actually different. Like you start actually comparing the two. This is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Why is it that it's only when we're challenged that we actually get to understand that we actually see things through our own cultural lens?
Yes. Like you said, there's a bit of a challenge.
Yeah.
You understand? So when there's a challenge, you begin to see things differently. You understand? So a couple of few reasons why you see most people act a certain way, you don't really blame them actually because of where they are coming from, definitely. So once you've got that reaction, that challenge, you're surely going to act a certain way, definitely. Sometimes it turns out very, very positive. So that is where you understand that most people will now have to understand their personal skills, their innate skills. A lot of people are very, very um,
So
adaptive to environment.
yeah.
When they get to a new place, they try as much as possible to be maneuver, integrate properly, interact properly. Why a lot of people too do not know how to interact properly. So even your day-to-day activities, it's always going to be a challenge, definitely. But it depends on how you actually react to it and how you try as much as possible to get yourself out of trouble if it's necessary sometimes. But I feel like there's always a challenge. Actually, it's surely going to happen. Definitely,
So
definitely.
what are some forms of, since we're talking about bias now,
Yeah.
like we're trying to break bias, so what are some forms of unconscious cultural bias that actually show up in our daily interactions or decisions that we don't know about?
Yes. Now looking about bias, I realize that bias is a constant and it's also a constraint to life. Let me explain that to you. Um, Everybody's biased,
To what
cautious
extent is the
to
question?
to in all extent in life,
Yeah.
because there's always going to be a level of sentiment in our day-to-day activities. Fact. So it could be laced with emotions, it could
Yeah.
be laced with cultural values, it could be laced with how you see things personally, your perception. Now, the bias, if we talk about bias, trust me, Arinze, we are going to be here all day. Trust me. But let me try as much as possible to break it down, which is looking at it from a different perspective, which is stereotype.
Yeah.
Let's talk about stereotyping bias. Stereotype bias, rather. You understand that people do not have the concrete information about a certain people or a certain culture. So they generalize based on that and they act on that. You understand? So if, like I said, migrating all the way from Nigeria straight down to the UK, I've already had the wrong bias, the wrong notion that English people do not have a culture.
Yeah.
They do not have food. We always think that yes, because we have different types of delicacies. Africans, we cook a lot, and we're better than the English people. I'm just give you an instance. You understand? So the bias was always there already because of the information that was fed. So it now affected my day-to-day activities, thinking that the information I got was 100% correct, which is not correct.
Yeah.
So experience has now a lot to do. So I'm beginning to understand it from a different perspective. Know that no, this is a lie. This is just bias. This is just what the media has actually
Fed you.
fed you out there. This is what they've said, and this is not true actually. So that's where I look. That's from where how I look at it now, because bias is always going to be there. Definitely, you can't take away bias. So it depends on how you manage it. But a lot of people are When it gets critical is when you do not make your findings, or you've not experienced it.
You're not open
You're not
minded.
open-minded, and you just act on everything you see, and for me, I think that's where the problem comes actually.
Yeah. But based on what you said, like the media feeding us information, all right? For
Okay.
example, I've met some people in they want to go to Africa, a certain part of Africa, but because of what they've seen in the media,
Media.
they don't want to go.
Yeah.
All right, for example. So where do you think the cultural bias actually starts from? Is it from the media? Is it from family? Do you think it's from school or education? Where do you think it starts from?
Yes. There's a saying that an environment to also train a child. As much as a child would have their own parental values at home, environment also has a role to play. And as a matter of fact, environment has a bigger influence actually. So most of the time, I realize that it's based on origin, where you're coming from.
So that's family then.
That's family. That's the first people you meet. That's the first people you interact. That's the first, your earthly gods, your parents actually. So if they are not very sound, or very, very much aware about societal values, they feed you with this information, and it affects your upbringing. Definitely. So it's you begin to see things a different way because you've been given the wrong tool. Definitely. So that's why I try as much as possible to always sensitize parents. Try to try to read. I understand that education is not for everybody, but education is a part of its life. That it's life already.
But but do you think it's about education? But this is the reason I asked this question.
Yeah. Sorry.
Right? So for example, right,
Yeah.
if you go to Nigeria now, you have a lot of educated people, right? But if you still notice when there's election, I'm just giving an example.
Okay.
They still all vote along ethnic and religious lines,
Yes.
even though they're educated.
Yeah.
So do you think it's about education?
Education is.
Do you understand what I'm trying to say
I
now? So,
totally. I
like for
understand.
example,
Yeah.
if you feel like the first information and the bias is coming from the family,
Yeah.
right? And you mentioned about sensitizing the parents because they need education.
Yeah.
Then I'm giving you this example where there's an election. Instead of voting for who they think that is going to be the best person for the job, they still vote along the ethnic and religious lines, even though they are very,
Very
educated.
educated. Yes.
So, do you think education can actually change the way they think at all?
Yes. Definitely.
How?
That's where the bias still comes into
Exactly.
play. Definitely. Like we all know, we have got different types of education, which is the formal and informal. And I realized that the informal has a lesser influence compared to the
Formal.
formal. Actually, I don't know if you understand what I'm saying. I mean that what you learn is not even enough. You know, structurally, you go to a building, school, institution, they just feed you with a lot of information, and that is it. But the informal information is quite the strongest. It's quite the most influential actually, because it is you're dealing with the environment, the society, you're aware of everything. So the formal education just try as much as possible to encapsulate you in that whole school idea. So yes, it's very, very important, it's very crucial to be educated, but on the wider scope, I think the informal education has a bigger role to play. So the informal education actually entails you to understand politics outside education.
Yeah.
Do you understand what I'm saying? You know that this thing is wrong or right. So you don't have to be biased. If this person is coming out for a person for an election, you read the manifesto, you look his antecedents. Now you're placing your judgment not just based on cultural bias because
Yeah.
of the fact that you guys are
You guys speak
from
the same
the same
language or from the
language.
same.
So
Yeah.
that's where common sense comes into play.
Yeah.
You understand? So when we have this conversation, it's very, very sensitive
Yeah.
as much as we want to have it, but it's also very vulnerable. You understand? People have got their judgments in different forms. I just want to like you because I feel like you're an Igbo man. I like you because I feel like you're Yoruba. People connect to such
On different
things on a
levels.
different levels, exactly. But the thing is, where it becomes a problem, a societal problem, is we now have to look at sometimes we have to say, oh no, let us push our cultural bias straight down and look at things critically.
Yeah.
Not a lot of people have logical thinking. Not a lot of people want to think critically.
Yeah.
Because if we now place bias and sentiments in societal values, then it's a problem already. So we have to look at things from a different perspective, from a different lens. Try as much as possible to strike a balance. Nobody is saying that the bias will be eradicated. It cannot be eradicated, definitely. It wouldn't be. I can assure you,
You can
Arinze,
eradicate the bias.
you can eradicate it.
Okay, so if you can't eradicate the bias, all right. So we've talked about the influence of media, family,
Yeah.
right, education.
Yeah.
So do you think some of these bias, do you think they are unintentional? And even though they're unintentional, do you think, though they're unintentional, do you think they're harmful?
Um, I would say they are subconscious,
So not unintentional, but
not intentional,
subconscious.
subconscious.
Okay.
That subconscious is that you act a certain way. You act it without understanding you
The
just
reason why you act that
the
way.
reason exactly. There is no risk management in that. You
Yeah.
just it's a thing. It's your thing.
Yeah.
You do it effortlessly, seamlessly.
Yeah.
You understand? So that's where I think it's like I said, cultures and bias. It's always going to be there. We cannot take it away, definitely. But what I try to advocate is for us to have a better society. We now have to say sometimes, I don't care if you're Igbo, I don't care if you're Yoruba, I don't care where you're from, I don't care if you're Pakistan, Indian, I should be able to look at you like an human being. Look at you properly, look at you like you've got blood running through your veins. That's just, it should be a natural phenomenon.
Yeah.
You understand? Yeah. So we wouldn't want the cultural bias to be cloud the act of humanism. I don't think that's where the problem comes into play.
So, but do you think there's any example, like current or past, where you think like cultural misunderstanding or bias has caused a lot of consequences, real
Yes.
consequences?
While growing up, let me be very honest with you. If we are going to be very honest in this, when they say a Yoruba man, they depict them with education. When they say an average Igbo man, they depict them with businesses.
Trade, yeah.
Exactly, trade. Now, when they say an Hausa man, they depict them with military.
Okay.
And it's for a longer time in Nigeria. We're using Nigeria as a case study. It's just the way things has always been, definitely. We're looking at the geopolitical zones in Nigeria, you understand how these things works. Now, let's go to the negatives. When they say don't trust a particular tribe, you look at the Yorubas. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying. And when they say notions like this person is very stubborn, they're not loyal, you look at the Igbos. Now, when they say uneducated people, the tribe, definitely they call the Hausas. And for a long time, people tend to hold on this perception, and bring it to a different environment. Now, I can remember when I moved into the UK, um, when I see a fellow Yoruba person, there's a wrong perception, which is, oh, I like him, I'm cool with him, you understand, but I feel like, oh, I'm not going to trust him because of the information that's been fed over the years. Yes, exactly. You understand what I'm saying? And these are the negatives of those information that's been fed to you.
So you think one of the consequences is it affects a lot of good relationship, building a lot of good relationships?
Trust me, it does actually, 100%.
Okay.
It makes you not have a full if I'm meant to be your friend and I'm beginning to put cultural sentiments into it, I wouldn't
Be open.
be open. You understand? We wouldn't
Okay.
be. I'll be very careful, with you. I feel like, oh, because there's a certain notion about these people, and to me, it is 100% wrong, actually. So, my day-to-day activities has taught me that no. Sometimes how open-minded I am is people, irrespective of their cultures and traditions and their personal bias, people are very unique. Culture,
Everybody's
yeah,
different.
everybody is different. Culture has a very, very strong influence, not a doubt, but people are actually very, very unique. So I'm beginning to see things. I try to give you that bit of the slack, which is okay, irrespective you're coming from this society or
Yeah.
from this country, if you're Polish, you're English, I also want to look at you like you're human first. So
And get to
that's
know you
I get to know
before.
you
Yeah.
before I place a judgment.
Yeah. But why do you think these cultural differences and the unconscious bias or subconscious bias, like you called it,
Yeah,
why do you think they matter more than ever in today's world?
they matter a lot, definitely. People have, if we are going to go to the extreme, you know, people have really gone through some, how will I say this right now? Like, because of bias, some people have gone to prison.
True. That's one of the consequences of actually. Yeah.
Facts, it affects relationship,
Yeah.
it affects marriage,
Yeah.
it affects every circle of life. So, like I said, if it's not properly managed, there's always going to be a negative impact in society. So if, for instance, I look at you because you're Pakistan or you're a Muslim, I'm Christian, and I feel like we can't have a proper relationship because of our religious values, it's always going to be a problem in the society. What is happening in the world right now, you see the world is going crazy. There's the war of the Iran to the Israel. you know I think you can see as much as it affected a bit of some African countries. I think in Nigeria, I saw when some group in the northern part of Nigeria were protesting that, oh, enough, nothing's going to happen to Iran. It's not gonna, it's a global thing.
Yeah.
So somebody needs to speak about this to say no. As much as we've got different values and traditions and our personal bias, you know we as humans that we are cannot change. We should be able to adopt the fact that we are humans. That's information. Firstly, this is human.
Yeah.
So I don't know how this is going to travel, but somebody needs to hear this, that we have to embrace love. For me particularly, like they always say, love conquers all. If I love you, I'll not look at your cultural bias, cultural differences, or whatever it is. I'll look at you as human, like I said. So that's the impact. That's how far it can actually go.
BetterHelp is a paid partner of this episode. Growing up in Nigeria, mental health was not discussed in our homes. As a man, you are discouraged from showing your emotions, as this is seen as a sign of weakness. If this resonates with you, you are not alone. About 62% of adults believe that societal attitudes stop them from seeking mental health support when they need one. And that's why I've teamed up with BetterHelp to stop the stigma around mental health and encourage you to seek mental health support from credentialed therapists when you need one. These credentialed therapists listen, ask questions, and help you to see things from new perspectives in order to improve your life. BetterHelp is on a mission to help you start therapy as easy as possible. If this is something you're interested in, click on the link below or go to betterhelp.com/laidback to match with a credentialed therapist in as little as a couple of days. You can also get 10% off your first month by using my link or the code LAIDBACK. Okay. So he said, he keeps saying that we can't change anybody. We can't change people. But do you think there are practical ways like people can actually challenge their own biases, like in everyday life, at work, friendship, like you mentioned, marriages, relationships, or like when they travel? Like, is there any way they can actually challenge their own biases?
When you say challenge, how do you mean it?
Like practical ways, for example, for example, let me give an example. You moving all the way from Nigeria to the UK
Yeah.
actually made it to challenge yourself to actually say, oh, what I thought was this is actually wrong.
Okay.
And now it actually taught you one way or the other, you had to actually be open minded
Yeah.
to unlearn and relearn some things. Is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
So are there actually practical ways you think other people can, because not everybody is close is as open minded as
As
you.
you are, exactly.
Others are close minded.
Yeah.
So are there practical ways you think they can actually challenge their own biases?
What helped me was what? It was not just about the information, it was experience.
Okay.
Yes. So the experience at that point in time was eminent. I needed to travel.
Right.
And I'm here today. And definitely, when I go, if I was in Nigeria at the time, maybe I'll probably still be holding on those biases and those sentiments,
Yeah.
But the further I traveled, and I realized that experience is also a key factor, you know. There's a saying in Pidgin English, which is "Who no go, no go no."
No go no.
Exactly. So experience is very, very important, and also looking at sensitization, which is very, very important too, because a lot of people are not really sensitized.
Yeah.
They are just still holding on those old bias. The what they said, this. I also urge people to try as much as possible to make research. Research is very, very important. The media doesn't say it as it is
Yeah.
sometimes. A lot of times, if you're going to be factual. The media only gives you an overview. You know, it doesn't give you the deep insight of
What
what
to
the
expect.
society, what you expect. You understand? So I always want people to try to, yes, as much as I'm free spirited, I can say I want you to be free spirited.
Or
You
everybody
know,
can be free spirited.
no, I think people can be free spirited. Definitely,
No,
trust me.
I'm not saying they can't be. For example, it's like saying everybody's going to be extroverted. I don't think so. Everybody is either you are introverted or extroverted.
Extra, yeah,
Yeah, but all I'm trying to say is if even if they are introverted, like for example, even if they are not free spirited, is there any way they can actually try as much as possible to have a crack in
a
the
crack,
armor,
yeah.
not to be so close minded at least?
But I mean, if you agree with me, you can be an introverted person and you are a free spirited person. Is that very possible?
Possible, yeah.
Yes. So your how you interact society, if you're a very, very cool person, I don't think it should affect how you look at humans.
Yeah.
Definitely. So just understand that you have to see that everybody is human. That's the first thing.
Yeah.
So I always tell my religious leaders, please, as much as we have our doctrines, most of these things are doctrinated in Bibles, Qurans. I understand, but we could also look at preaching on societal value.
Yeah.
The Bible will probably wouldn't tell you to go to Moscow in France and be nice to people.
Yeah.
The Bible didn't say that. But there are instances where we need to understand that apart from just preaching the what we know as our religious um, cultures, we should also look at talking about societal importance, how we can interact in society, how we can be of good people, how we can try to shape things in a positive light. So that's how I look at things actually.
Okay. But do you think people from marginalized cultures,
Mm.
ethnic minorities, do you think they can also hold their own biases as well?
Yes. As a matter of fact, they're holding it more.
Because most of the time they believe, it's always the other way around. But do you think they can actually hold their own biases, and how does it actually affect them?
Yeah, if they're marginalized,
Yeah,
definitely, it will surely create a hole. There's always going to be a bias
yeah,
if you're marginalized. You're marginalized is that you are not given the opportunity every other person is given.
yeah.
You know, it could be education, it could be,
So I totally affect the way they see
yes, it could
everything.
be religion.
Yeah,
Exactly. You can't. Most family will say you will never marry a Christian. You
yeah,
will never marry a Muslim. So if you don't get to expose yourself, if I don't get to marry a Muslim, I wouldn't understand what it entails to marry a Muslim.
yeah.
I'm just saying, So if you're marginalized, it is surely going to cause it is definitely it as a matter of fact, it is one of the things that I know that has a very, very strong impact when it comes to cultural sentiments and cultural bias.
Yeah.
So if you're not being fed the actual information, it is surely information is key, definitely. So these things has to be fed all the time, actually.
So that means power dynamics like race, nationality, class, they actually influence how cultural differences are perceived
100,
and judged.
100%.
Interesting. So
100%.
is there any way we can actually change that? Anyway, I'm just asking here now.
Change is very constant, but I don't think we cannot change that.
Yeah.
We can only manage it.
Okay.
Yeah, we can't totally eradicate it.
We can
It is going to
sensitize.
live with us, definitely. If if I love my wife, or I love my girlfriend, or I love my partner, I'm always going to put them first, and that's bias, that's sentiment,
Yeah.
But it is respected at that point in time. If it's people will understand that yes, there's a reason why you are doing this.
Yeah.
It's it is expected of me to love my wife,
Of course.
to love my family,
Yeah.
to put them first, definitely. So, like we always say, family comes first. But as much as families comes first, I also have to understand that every other person around me is human. I have to, there should be a striking balance.
Yeah.
So I promise you, bias is not going anywhere. We're going to live. It is going to be
No,
a thing.
I totally get that, but when we keep talking about sensitization, all right, and language is a crucial part of culture,
Yeah.
right? So, what role do you think language can actually play in actually breaking this cultural bias?
Hmm. You also have to respect people's culture. If you go to Sweden and you have to speak the Swedish language,
Yeah.
definitely, it's their language. Accepting people's culture, you have to accept it. It is when you accept it, you love it,
Yeah.
you understand it. When they say when you go to the Rome, you behave like a Romans. These are it is also applicable in everywhere. Looking at the laws and the legislation, the laws in the UK, and looking at the laws in Nigeria, you will see there's a huge difference. So if you're in the UK, you have to behave like you're respecting the values and the cultural values in this society.
Yeah.
If you're in Nigeria, you have to stick to that. Sometimes I always tell people, as much as a lot of cultures might not be very appealing to you, but that's where you have to apply how will I say this right now? You have to try as much to bring in the balance, to understand that this is people's culture and traditions.
Yeah.
You know, you have to just respect it. Definitely, I'm a stronghold of respecting people's culture. It is something that you have to do, and when you see yourself doing it, everything goes well. Definitely,
Yeah.
everything goes well.
Yeah, and that's why I asked the question because, for example, I notice if you go anywhere, let's say you go to France,
Yeah.
and let's say you're English, or they know you to speak English, and all of a sudden you say bonjour, comment ça va? Like you speak French.
Yeah.
Whether you like it, you'll be shocked. The person's face will just light up.
Yes.
They become happier.
Happier, exactly.
So that's why I asked the question, like, what role do you think language can actually play in actually breaking the cultural barriers? Like, because I noticed that language, whether it's in Portuguese, whatever, even if it's normal dialect,
Yes.
different. For example, if you go to Manchester, the English they speak in Manchester different
It's quite
from
different,
the
yeah.
English they speak in Hereford or Leicester
Hereford,
or
yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
You notice that if you speak like them,
Like them, yeah.
they are happier, whether you like it or not. I've noticed it. They're
Yeah.
happier.
You
So,
know?
do you think trying as much as making that effort to actually understand how they speak and the
Yeah.
language, do you think it can actually help to actually break down these barriers? then?
Yes. I'm accepting your culture.
Yeah.
The other time I went to a golf club in Hereford, actually, a place in Hereford, and there was a lady who was really interested. So we were speaking pidgin English. She realized that there's something wrong about what we're saying.
Yeah.
She could hear a bit of English, but she could not comprehend
Yeah.
why is the is and the was quite
So
different.
different, yeah.
And she came, oh no, sorry, what's your name? I said, my name is Prince. I said, oh please, I love your language. So I was telling her it's called Pidgin English. So surprisingly, I, I'm shocked that a lot of people do not understand that they've got something called Pidgin English.
Yeah. So a lot
It's
of people
just,
don't know.
you see, they don't really know,
Yeah.
and she was asking me, oh, and you speak so well, you speak English. How do you, and they don't understand that English is the first language in Nigeria.
Yeah.
They don't really understand this thing. So people like it when they see you practice your culture. They
Yeah.
love it.
They embrace you.
It's appealing to them.
Yeah.
You make them feel like you make them feel like yes, you're one of us. So
You've
it's
accepted us
you've
as what? Yeah.
so what you've accepted, you respect it definitely. So that's what it is. So I always urge people to try to also learn other languages. Like currently, I'm trying to learn how to speak Spanish
Yeah.
on my own. I'm giving it a try. I'm giving it a go because Very soon, I'm probably going for holidays and stuff. So I also want to say gracias. I want to say bonjour. It's very people look at you. Oh wow, that's nice. You're
Yeah,
Nigerian. You speak. They love it, and
yeah,
they love it. It's just like when you see a white man wearing ashoke or
yeah,
wearing ishago, you love
yeah.
you. It
You'll
is
be happy. You'll
you'll
be
be
like,
happy
oh,
exactly. You'll be
who
happy
introduced you to this? Yeah,
definitely. So definitely.
yeah. So, but now you've mentioned it because you just gave an example, or
Yeah.
like, you've become self-aware. You're trying to learn different languages. All right. So, what do you think is the role of self-awareness um, in as much as we're trying to break the bias now? How do you think people can actually become self-aware of their own biases? Because that self-awareness is the first thing first.
Yes. For me, that's a very very good question because a lot of people are not aware.
Yeah, because you
That's
may talk from now to be, but they can't see because they're not self-aware, no matter how much
yes.
you explain it. So, because self-awareness is key. For example, if you're trying to lead somebody and the person is blind, no matter what you say, if the
See,
person cannot see that they are blind, they won't listen
they
to
will
you.
listen to you exactly.
So how can they become self-aware of their own biases then?
Maybe you're listening to Laidback. You,
Fair enough.
fair enough because it will be a subtle reminder that you have to be aware of yourself,
Yeah,
your environment. You have to be aware. The environment doesn't just belong to one person.
yeah,
As much as you have, that's why you look at the laws in the UK, you see inclusivity and diversity. They understand the importance in building a community, building a society.
yeah,
Everybody has to be included. Everybody has to be, it's a diverse world. As much as we always use the word diverse economy or diverse country, it's the world is diverse.
yeah,
It's a global. It's a global market actually. So these are the things that you're going to face in your day-to-day activities. You're going to meet a Chinese person today. Also have to understand that yes, he's a Chinese.
yeah,
You understand? So, like I said, making research, being nice to people. Sometimes when you're nice to people, just being nice to people, you know, it makes you're very much aware that yes, as much as the person might probably have a different culture
yeah,
from yours, just be nice. So you have a good level of understanding interaction because you're being nice, you're being very respected, you're
yeah,
being respectful, and so that's what it is. So I tell people, please make research.
yeah.
You know, the media says it. You know,
But it's different.
it's very very different. It's a different ball game, totally, 100%. I can say that all over and over again.
Yeah.
It's a different ball game.
So just like we've talked about self-awareness now, because like you said, that self-awareness is key, right? So how do you think one should respond to being called out for a biased comment or behavior? Because if somebody is biased and
Yes.
they are not self-aware, or they are self-aware, and you call them out, oh, this thing you just said to this person is not really good. You call them out for a behavior or comment. How do you think they should react to being called out? Because
there's
yeah,
there's a word called um ethnocentrism.
yeah,
So people are ethnocentric.
yeah,
What that means is that your your cultural values, your tradition, your culture has a stronger influence on your personality.
yeah,
So they will say a Scottish man, when a Scottish man is there, you see a Scottish man act a certain way, an Igbo man act a certain way, you know. So I understand that yes, some cultures are very unapologetic. They just want to so like I love the Indians.
yeah,
An Indian man will wear his regalia to any function, and he wants you to understand that he's Indian and it has to be respected. You know, so in a community, in a society of such practices, I always tell people that you have your cultural values, but you don't have to push it. You don't how I don't know how to say this,
force it
like
on other
forcing
people.
other people. Definitely, as a Yoruba man, you don't like, it's like you come to a place and the normal language is English language. You're already speaking Yoruba. A lot of people don't find that very very comfortable, or you speak Igbo. People just feel like no, that's where we understand that there's diversity, but we also want you to have that understanding that yes, this is society for everybody. So it depends on, that's why education comes into play. You know, these are the things you might probably not learn in class.
Yeah,
It's
because some people, when you call them out on it, even calmly, they react to it very, very negatively. So, what's the best way to actually react to it is to let the person know, oh, I understand this is your language, but what you're saying, can't actually understand. For
understand.
example, you give an example with language,
Yes.
or maybe the person is making side
So-
comments or whatever.
yeah.
Right? That's whether you like it or not. It can make the other person uncomfortable
Yes,
because
definitely.
even though the person is speaking the English, they're making side comments to their friends in other language. The person is already uncomfortable. This is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I understand
So,
you. I
how do
understand
you
you.
think people should actually react to that when they are being called out? Oh, this is biased, or
No,
for this behavior
if
comment.
yeah, you have to. If firstly, if they call you out and say that, Mr. Man, you are too erotic in this gathering.
Yeah, you have
Do
to
you
calm down.
understand? You just have to calm down. You know how you understand, especially
Yeah,
the Igbos. You know how they
yeah,
can be. Or you're too modernized in this whole thing. You just have to bring the tone a little bit down.
yeah,
But the thing is, sometimes, like I said, it could be subconscious because it is your life. It is a part of your life.
yeah,
You cannot you sorry, I'm not sorry, I'm Igbo. But I feel like a little bit of emotional intelligence should be added. It should be a spice in the food,
yeah,
because if you're emotionally intelligent, you understand how to interact in the society.
yeah,
So that's where education comes into play. That's where you said a lot of people are marginalized. A lot of factors are um, attached in this whole conversation. People are not educated, people are marginalized, people have got different wrong upbringing. They'll say these people, they are bad people, don't do not do anything. Some families do that till next till it's going to happen till next year,
yeah,
till the day this world is going to end. So we are actually calling on parents, we're calling on people, we're calling on groups.
yeah,
Let love be the most important thing. I think I love integration. I love to integrate properly for me. But some people do not like to integrate. But if you're not going to integrate, you know, or let's say you're an Yoruba man, say I will not marry an Igbo man or marry an Hausa person, but we also want you to be human
yeah,
and say that, oh, as much as you've got your values, but you also have to make people understand that they're humans and understand how the society works.
yeah. Fair. We've talked about self-awareness now.
Yeah.
You just mentioned emotional intelligence. Because I
Yeah.
was about to ask that question, you mentioned emotional intelligence. So, what role do you think empathy now? Because empathy is part of emotional intelligence, all right?
Yes.
Empathy. What role do you think empathy actually plays in breaking this bias, and how can it be cultivated and not just assumed? Because some people will tell you they're empathetic, but they don't really know that they are not. Right?
Yeah.
Empathy for a lot of people, they don't understand it.
They
It's
look at it
you
like self pity.
exactly. You have to put yourself in the other person's shoes to
Shoes.
understand
Yes.
how.
The
For,
person
for
feels
example, if I do this same thing to
to
you,
you.
would you like it?
Like it.
All right. So how what role do you think empathy actually plays in breaking this bias, and how can it be cultivated?
At the end of the day, empathy is empathy.
Yeah.
Empathy is it is a good value, definitely, because people connect with be with being empathetic. When you're empathetic to some people, they feel very comfortable. You make them feel very relaxed, you make them feel very welcoming. The environment automatically becomes very warm to them because you are empathetic. Like businesses will always say that, have you got any empathetic values in you? Yes, I'm empathetic. So that's where it helps, you know, because I you I could just be saying some things about being an Igbo man, for instance, and you don't like it,
Yeah.
and you call me like, oh, I'm so sorry, but this is what I mean, this is what I mean, and you understand, So empathy has a lot of role to play, definitely.
Very.
Trust me, it does. It's very, very important that I think empathy in this world of today, it should be a character that you must imbibe,
Yeah.
just to have a go. A lot of people are like, "Oh, if you're gonna disrespect me, you're not gonna have a go on
Yeah.
this." So empathy is very, very important. It's very, very important. Even in the health sector, you see how they say it. It's
Mm,
very, very important.
I agree. I agree. But because of time, so if there's anybody listening today, all right, um, and you want that person to walk away with a mindset shift, all right, about cultural differences, what would that be?
Firstly, I want people to understand that not all cultures are bad. Exactly. If you have 10,000 people act a certain way, there's a reason to that. It's a part of their journey and it's a part of their origin, and it has to be respected. You know, as far as it's not killing nobody, and nobody is dying.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the like a lot of cultures that really went into killings, and I think they've been abolished. The killing of twins in Nigeria by Mary Slessor, so they all stopped it. The slave trade,
Yeah.
it was a culture at the time.
Yeah.
All these things have been abolished. But people always say that other cultures, like, we like to eat yam and oil, we love to have stew and rice. It's the kind of food, this is the language you speak.
Yeah.
These are the things that must be respected, definitely, as much as we have got different values. So if you can be able to always strike a balance to know that if you want yours to be respected, you have to respect other people's culture.
True.
Yes. So that's how I always try to sensitize people out there. You know, I understand that most people find some cultures very, very offensive. Yes, they do. They do.
Yeah.
They expect. I was watching a documentary the other time. I think it was one of the documentaries in Bangladesh. So I met a couple of my friends like, I can't travel to Bangladesh. Why? Because of the way they prepare the food. They feel like it is not hygienic. Do you understand? It's just their perception, and they've got. You have your perception, definitely, but as much as you look at it as is offensive, which is not offensive to them, it has to be respected, definitely. So that's why I always try to sensitize people that all cultures are very, very important, definitely. So
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, but again, because of time, where can the listeners actually connect with you if they want to connect with you or learn more about your work? Where can they where can they
Most
connect
of my
with you?
work are not even on my social media platforms, anyways. But
Yeah.
I'm on Instagram, which is I am on Prince Willis.
Okay.
I'm on Facebook, which is Prince with Obinna, and you can call me up. I don't know.
Are you on LinkedIn as well?
I'm on LinkedIn. Yes, Prince will care for on LinkedIn.
Okay.
Yes, so these are the places you can catch me.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Well, that's all the time we have for this week, Obinna. Thank you so
Thank
much
you
for
for
coming onto the
having
show.
me. Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
So now that you've done the podcast, so did it meet your expectations then?
Yes, I did. It's very warm here. I like the lightning.
Yeah.
It's quite sunny out there, but it feels like it's night here. It's very calm, very relaxed. Yeah. So I love it here today. Trust me. I do. I do.
So hopefully we'll do it again then.
Yeah, sure, definitely.
All right. Thank you.
All right then.